From the Gulf States Newsroom, this is the Gulf States Gumbo, your weekly serving of stories from Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I'm sports and cultural reporter Joseph King, chopping it up this week. On today's show, we're talking Louisiana sports. From the Baton Rouge baseball bats transforming the game.
I mean, they call it a torpedo because it sounds cooler, but it really does look like a bowling pin.
To a New Orleans Saints player opening a youth football camp that's inclusive for everyone.
You know, they feel seen and they want to feel included.
That's all coming up on the Gulf States Gumbo. If you're a baseball fan, then you know it's impossible to watch a game these days without hearing about torpedo bats, the bat design giving hitters newfound power. But what is it about these bats that allows players to hit the ball so deep? WWNO and WRKF's Alana Schreiber visited Marucci Sports, a bat manufacturer in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to find out.
Torpedo bats are all over the news these days. It started in late March, when the 2025 baseball season had just begun. Here's Tyler Kepner, senior baseball writer for The Athletic.
In the second game of the year, when the Yankees scored 20 runs and hit 9 home runs in a game.
Drill deep to left field. There it goes. See ya. The Yankees' 9th home run of the day.
And there's always people who wonder about whether the ball is juiced or whatever.
But this time, it wasn't the ball people were talking about. It was the bat. So I decided to pay a visit to Marucci Sports in Baton Rouge. They're one of the top companies making this new so-called torpedo bat.
I'm in heaven. This is a baseball lover's dream room.
I'm standing in a conference room where bats line the walls, stairs, and ceiling. It's part of this big complex off the highway where the company constructs, finishes, and tests out the bats. I'm with Kurt Ainsworth, co-founder and CEO. Even he was amazed at how many people were talking about these bats.
It was not your normal just ESPN or MLB Network talking about baseball. It was people with Fox News and CNN talking about baseball. So everybody that's not even baseball fans know about torpedo.
Anyone who looks at a torpedo bat can tell. What makes them unique is their shape.
I mean, it looks like a bowling pin. I mean, they call it a torpedo because it sounds cooler, but it really does look like a bowling pin.
Traditional bats get bigger the higher up you go, but torpedo bats bulge about 3/4 of the way up and thin out at the top, like a bowling pin. In other words, there's a bigger sweet spot.
It's basically taking the girth and the size of the end of the bat and moving it into the hitting space, so it gives the player a better chance for success.
So let's say a major leaguer wants to try a torpedo bat. First, he comes to Baton Rouge. There, he'll meet with Micah Gibbs at Marucci's Baseball Performance Lab. Think some of the biggest stars in the MLB.
Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Alex Bregman, Jeremy Pena.
And even my personal hero, Mets shortstop
Francisco Lindor.
Gibbs says a lot goes into finding the perfect bat for a player.
We have a fitting matrix. We have a bunch of different bats, different weights, weight distributions. We put them through an entire physical assessment before they even start swinging.
Once the player chooses the right bat, maybe even a torpedo bat, construction begins. Marucci owns their own wood mill in Pennsylvania, so first they ship and dry the wood, usually maple.
So the bats come in as a billet of wood, and we will cut it into the shape of the bat, whatever that player specified for their bat.
That's Sager Allen, a wood operator. He's showing me around the factory side of the business, where they cut and sand every bat.
We have, I want to say, over 70,000 different models we can cut and make, so there's definitely an art form to it.
After the bats are cut, sanded, and weighed, they head over to the painting department. Once the bats are painted and knobbed at the bottom, and inscribed with the player's often illegible signature, they're shipped to the athletes to test out. But I want to test out these bats too. We head to Marucci's on-site batting cages, the same ones where major leaguers, like Francisco Lindor, are getting fitted. But I'm not worried. I've played 2 seasons in an adult softball league. Micah grabbed some torpedo bats, and I've brought along Marty Sullivan. He's an LSU sports reporter, and today, my pitcher. He starts throwing, and I start swinging.
Are you trying to throw off-speed pitches?
Yes.
Just soft toss it.
I didn't really notice the bat difference at first. I also wasn't getting too many hits. Then, after a couple more swings and negotiating with my pitcher, I started to get the hang of it.
It's always more of an opposite field kind of hitter.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. the sweet spot is bigger. So big, in fact, that earlier in the season, some wondered if the bats might get banned. But the Athletics' Tyler Kepner isn't too worried.
I mean, I think it's just an innovation for the hitters, honestly. And we've seen a lot of advancements the last few years in pitching technology and velocity and the way to make balls spin. So I think this is just one time when the hitters are fighting back a little bit.
In other words, baseball is constantly evolving, and these torpedo bats are just the latest innovation in pushing the limits of the game. In Baton Rouge, I'm Alana Schreiber.
The Gulf States Newsroom is a team of journalists working with NPR and local public media stations in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana to cover the issues that matter to you. Email us, connect@gulfstatesnewsroom.org.
New Orleans Saints defensive tackle Khalen Saunders says football should be open for everybody. That's why the two-time Super Bowl champion says his youth football camp is inclusive to the queer community. His brother Cameron Saunders is a part of that community and recently went on tour with Taylor Swift as a backup dancer. I talked to Khalen Saunders about what led to his allyship and how it intersects with football. So my first question for you is, can you tell me what led to the creation of this youth football camp and the focus you're making it on it being LGBTQ plus inclusive?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had already had a football camp going for the last 2 years, going on 3 years. It's just, I was just trying to continue, having these camps every summer. And but the actual what led me to, want to make it an inclusive camp is that I was doing work with my brother, who, obviously everybody knows and stuff like that. But I was doing work with him for mental health awareness. That kind of got me thinking about how to help in the landscape of mental health and stuff like that. And so, and then that's kind of how it, those steps led me to start thinking about being able to make it more inclusive and, more of a camp that everybody can feel welcome at and stuff like that.
The mental health aspect, that coincides with the LGBTQ plus aspect.
Mentally is one of the first things you have to deal with and the hardest things that you have to deal with. So, that I feel like they definitely go hand in hand a lot.
And has there been any parents that's reached out to you and been like, I appreciate this. My kid wants to come to your camp. You don't have to give me no names, nothing like that. But like, is anybody that's done that? And on the opposite end, has there been people that's like, I'm not a fan of this. My kids will not come to this camp no more?
Yeah. I've received both. Like I almost as equally, almost equally, like 50-50 of people that are whether their kid, identifies as anything in the community, or whether the parent themselves identifies as, a member of the community. They've, like, people are trying to fly in from out of town to come to this camp just because, they feel seen, and they want to feel included, and they want to just make this a big event. And then, like you said as well, some people are completely against it. Some people have unfollowed and all of this and announced their unfollowing and all that. I'm like, all right, hey, I can't. At the end of the day, like I told my brother, I feel like, this is something I strongly feel about, just because I wouldn't choose anybody's side over my blood brother's side. And so it's foolish to even consider arguing with a random person I've never met until a couple weeks ago, when I announced this camp, that I'm going to continue to support my brother. You know what I mean? Like that almost sounds foolish. So there's no reason that anything regarding LGBTQ, the LGBTQ community should affect you as a heterosexual person if you don't like, why should it affect you? You know what I mean? Like, why there shouldn't be any crossover if there isn't any crossover. So I don't see what there's any. Why is there any outrage of an NFL player trying to just show that I'm affected by this and I'm affected by the outbursts and outlash that this community receives, and so I would rather it not be like that. So I'm telling people, hey, I support this community. Like it's just simple in my mind, but it's not that simple in some of these other people's minds. So,
what more you think fans could possibly do to open up this space to be more inclusive?
Oh yeah, the fans honestly are the most important part because, obviously there's no telling if any players would come out and do that because they know that the spotlight is on them, so they'll feel more, they feel a little bit more pressure and stuff like that. But the fans are the ones who, incorporate the behaviors and the temperaments of the entire crowd, So, I think that just showing that you're here for the love of the game and you're cheering on your team and stuff like that without having to make any kind of, because we all know there's trash talking in football. There's a lot of trash talking in sports in general, especially in football because it's a contact sport and stuff like that. But when you have to worry about people coming up to your own family in the crowd and making remarks to them because of their sexual orientation, the real side of allyship is like, I grew up with it as well. It's like, I don't feel like I have to fight my brother's battles or anything like that, but I always felt, as a man and stuff like that, I do feel, I need to protect my brother. Even though he's older than me and all of that, I've always felt like I need to protect my brother. And I don't want to feel like that against fans that I'm trying to play for their city. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want that to be a disconnection because that shouldn't be. It just simply shouldn't be. So I think that, it's just like stated earlier, it's just that word empathy. I feel like everybody could be a little more empathetic, especially in this time in the world, and just try to be better people and make the world a little better. You know what I'm saying? That's all my work is based on.
And now it's time for Gulf States Gems, a series that shines a light on some of the treasures of the region. Here's our public health reporter, Drew Hawkins, with this week's gem from Laurel, Mississippi.
Thanks, Joseph. I'm sure you're just like me in thinking that one of the great things about this job is you get to travel all around the Gulf South, which means you get to stop and eat at a lot of really great places. And for me, anytime I am anywhere near Laurel, Mississippi, I know I'm stopping at Hog Heaven. I'm getting some ribs, I'm getting some chicken. I am taking too long to figure out which sides I want to go with because you really can't go wrong. And I'm getting a big sweet tea. And I am hoping that I'll have enough caffeine to be able to drive to wherever it is I'm going for that reporting trip. But shout out Hog Heaven for fueling any stories that have me crossing through Laurel, Mississippi.
You can see pictures of Gulf States gems from across the region on our Instagram. And we want to hear about a place you consider a gem. It could be a restaurant, a bookstore, or a natural park. Send us your suggestion. Email connect@gulfstatesnewsroom.org. This week's show was hosted by me, Joseph King, and it's cooked up by the Gulf States Newsroom team. Our theme music is by DJ Supreme. Special thanks to our partner stations, WBHM, Mississippi Public Broadcasting, WWNO, and WRKF. You can find us in your podcast feeds every Friday. Look us up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to steal your root